Welcome to episode 9 of the Hike or Die Outdoor Adventure podcast. I'm here with my friend Craig, who could become my foe after this episode, because it's Hammock versus Tent. Craig, quickly play the music. Yes, welcome. Thank you, people, once again for joining us. Perhaps I'll talk straight into the mic.
Yeah.
First and foremost, thank you to our sponsors, Bluey Merino, Topo Maps Plus, Rios Sunglasses That Float, and Caribbee.com. Hey, mate, I was out... sorry, I've skipped straight. How are you?
Oh, I'm good.
So rude of me. That is good. What have you been up to?
There's going to be lots of conflict tonight, is there?
Oh, there's going to so much. It's mate versus mate, state versus state.
Pretty much.
Oh, it's going to be full on. I'll get to that. Let's knock over this. Let's knock over some news first, because I'm champing at the bit.
I've been having a good time, mate. I've been getting out in the sun heaps and doing a bit of fishing with the kids. And
no doubt you've been covering up and you've been sun smart though.
Absolutely.
Good. Excellent.
Queensland.
Good to hear. Yeah.
Just really enjoyed, catching some live bait and catching some fish. And
I see you actually caught the bait as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, what do you have, a little cast net or something?
No, yabbies.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yabby pump.
That's the old tried and tested
it is
technique, man. You go and stand up to your waist in water and let the tide come in on the sandbanks and just I caught some big brim. It was really nice.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure did.
Take some for eating?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
Yes, I actually gave them to my aunt who was there at the day. She took them home and ate them, but they were awesome. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. And did you say you were with the kids?
Yeah, with the kids.
Oh, awesome. Did you spend 98% of your time putting bait on their hooks?
I actually managed to just go fishing with one of my cousins, and the kids were playing sandcastles and stuff.
Good. Excellent.
I avoided that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, you usually play sandcastles with me, so I'd feel wrong if you did that with someone else.
Well, yeah. What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I've been reading a lot, and that's going to shock a lot of listeners. Who can read as well. It's true. I've been reading a lot. I've read 5 books in 6 weeks. I've just been smashing it.
Jeez.
And they've been predominantly sort of outdoors related stuff.
Yeah.
There's a couple of good ones, noteworthy ones, that I wanted to quickly mention.
Okay.
Do you remember there was that massive, in 1996, there was a storm that came across Everest, like a massive storm, and it killed a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well, this guy called Beck Weathers survived, but if you Google pictures of him, his whole face got frozen off.
Oh, right.
And he got snow blindness, and his both hands were cut off and some toes and stuff. But I think he's the only human being that's ever stayed out overnight on Everest and not died. But the funny thing is, he kind of did die. Like, he just fell over and just laid there and kind of gave up. And it was something like 12 hours later, his eyes just opened again, and he just got up and kept walking.
Jeez.
Absolute freak of nature. Like, he can't even explain it himself. He kind of talks about it a lot in the book, but the craziest thing is, if you're not familiar with snow blindness, it's the snow's so white and you're up so high in altitude that it actually burns your. It's almost like welding blindness. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of like damages your eyes, burns the inside of them if you don't have proper goggles, and that kind of happened to him. And the other thing he did was he wiped his face, and a piece of like granular ice scratched his cornea, so then he couldn't see properly.
Did anything good happen in this book?
He didn't die.
Right.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, to find his way back to camp, he knew that the day before when they were climbing up the mountain, the wind was square on his back. So he actually stood up and turned his body until the wind was straight in his face and just kept walking in that direction. And he said if the wind had have changed, he would have just followed the wind and walked off the edge of a cliff. He didn't know where he was going. He was just walking. And he walked into camp and some poor guy was out there, I don't know, going to take a leak or something, and just looks up and sees this dead guy. I mean dead, because they actually already radioed his wife in New Zealand and told her that he was dead and that they left him on the mountain. They couldn't bring him down. And then he walks into camp the next day. Absolutely incredible story. What I also like about it is he says right at the start, he says, I'm no author, but he said if you want to read a book about the events that happened and, the real point by point, he said, go read this other book, which I think is called Into Thin Air or something, that the one they made that movie off. He said because it's a much better account of events, but the way he's kind of structured this book is just really different. It goes into the obsession of climbing and kind of his personality and how he almost lost his family before he lost his life, and he was just so obsessed, and it just kind of makes you check yourself, I think. And we're definitely passionate about what we do, but we're not stupid passionate like he was, and we don't kind of take risks for kind of egotistical reasons. And he's the first one to say in his book that he was doing things for the wrong reasons. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's a good book, man. I couldn't put it down for a week. It was good. That's one of them. Another one for all you kind of fans of, it's not fantasy, I can't put my finger on this. There's an author called Michelle Paver, and I got this book for $4 at a secondhand store. It's called Wolf Brother, Chronicles of Ancient Darkness. And she's I'm going to get this wrong. She's like not a paleontologist. She studies old civilizations, and in particular, she knows a lot about early European, I guess you could call them indigenous people. So she's written this book about this boy who lives in that time and kind of gets right into the kind of spiritual side of what their beliefs were and everything. And man, it's really good. Like at the first page, I just couldn't put this thing down. And the whole thing's about, they're all outdoors, and he's got a bow and arrow, and he's got this wolf cub as a pet or friend or whatever. The whole thing is just reeks of every daydream you ever had as a kid.
Yeah, cool.
It just captivated me. Really good. And the other book I finished off was called How to Connect with Nature by Tristan Gooley. That was a present from my sister-in-law. Thank you, sister-in-law. A great book. He is an interesting guy. He's written quite a few books. He's from the UK. And the way he approaches things is he kind of looks for signs in nature. And the further you get through the book, the more you realize that you perhaps have been reading signs without realizing it. And just the way that birds move through, like we both made the observation, I think, in the last podcast about when we were in rainy conditions, we tend to see more birds moving around.
Yeah.
So he talks about things like that, like things about if you see grass growing a particular way, or if you see moss on one side of every tree, you'll be able to tell the direction from that, right?
Righto.
Even if you can't see where the sun is, you know the direction, and all these sorts of things. And he goes pretty deep, and there's exercises in the book as well to kind of say, next time you go out, make note of this and this and this, and then he kind of asks you questions about stuff. It was interesting. It was a strange read. In the structure of the book is not like anything else I've read, but I stuck with it, and it was interesting.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, sounds cool.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, I'm
reading. Yeah.
I might have to start reading.
Yeah, this reading thing. Yeah, you gotta get into it, man. I would highly recommend it. If you can't do the reading thing, just get onto audiobooks or something.
Right, yeah, I should. Something that you can't just scroll up on your phone. I haven't done that in a long time.
I could probably read to you some nights if we go when we go hiking.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, I had another breakthrough in, I think, our second podcast. We talked a lot about hiking fitness and fitness in general. I started, one of the guys at work bolted a chin-up bar to the wall, and it was kind of a bit of a joke. We called it the prison gym. And it's a bit of a joke, and then he brought in some old weights and everything, but the fundamental change happened with me. This has been happening. He put it up about 2 months ago. I jump up there and we try and do wide grip chin-ups and overhand, and I could do one, like 8 weeks ago, I could do one chin-up, and I think he was doing about 3 or 4. And I was just, didn't feel very good about myself because I'm generally fit, right? But it's such a specific move that it's quite difficult. So anyway, every day we were going down there and I'm trying to do these chin-ups. And I just kept doing it every day because it was fun. We'd go down and have a chat. We'd have a 5-minute break from work. We'd all have a laugh, 2 or 3 or 4 of us. We'd all try and do as many as we could. And what started happening was I just built this habit of every day I wanted to do some exercise. I think the problem that I've had in the past is I've tried to do kind of 2 or 3 big workouts during the week, and I just blast myself into oblivion, like psychologically and mentally, to a point where, I can hardly walk the next day or something. And when it comes to time to exercise again, I know it's like almost like running a marathon, so it's a big undertaking. Mm-hmm. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
But with this, it's, we just go down and we just do 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what started to happen, I started to build this habit of doing a small amount every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then some nights I'd get home from work and do a bit more exercise. And then, like on, I was talking about it last podcast as well. I was on holidays and I thought, hey, I'm just going to, do a 5K trail run because I just feel energetic and I want to do stuff every day.
Sure.
But what's happened is over the last 6 weeks, so I was on 1 chin-up for 2 weeks. I couldn't even break to 2.
All right.
And now I just cracked 9
this
week. And in the last 2 weeks, I've gone from 5 to 9. So that curve is just going ballistic.
Cool.
But it's the habit that it's formed. And I'm starting to see gains. And then what I've done so last week is just say, well, what if I started improving my diet even more? Then what could I get out of that? So I just wanted to mention it because it's taken me my whole life to realize that you don't have to do these massive workouts to actually see results. And I think for me, my personality, build up the habit and then expand from that, because it's just too easy to miss one workout. But for me now, if I miss one workout, I still do another 4 in the week.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was worth mentioning. I know a lot of people try a lot of different theories, and for me to get this far in life and struggle to keep a routine, and then get to this point and just go, oh wow, it's just so simple when you just don't take it to failure all the time.
Oh, always try and just incorporate in your life. Take the stairs. Make sure you're not afraid to carry a bit of stuff from your car and do those lifting parts of your job without,
getting the forklift,
getting the help. Just
exactly. Just don't park right next to the entrance of the
Yeah.
supermarket and stuff
That's
like
right.
that. Yeah.
Little things make a difference.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Anyway, this is a bit of a tangent. I was just trying to delay the inevitable, mate.
Which is?
Ooh, I can't talk about it yet. I've got to do some quick shout-outs.
Righto.
So I wanted to say thanks to... I don't know if it's meant to be the regrass or their grass, but at their grass is her Instagram username. That's Omara Grass. She's been following us for ages and vice versa, and she's a trail runner, and she's got 2 kids now. They just kind of keep popping up. Like the extra kids keep popping up on her Instagram over the years.
Yeah.
But she gets out there and just still gets outdoors, like, and with her kids in strollers, and she does tons of different, like 5K, 10K, 30K, 50K trail runs. So she's serious unit.
Yeah.
Really interesting to see the stuff that she does. So thanks for all your support, Omara. We appreciate it. The other one is Tibor, otherwise known as Adam Romano. Adam also, we've watched him for years, and he's from Ontario.
Cool.
And he's always outdoors. Look at this shot, Craig. He's just cooking bacon over a stick over the fire. He's got it draped over like some kind of curtains.
That's mouth-watering.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah, it was a good shot. Yeah, tons of outdoor stuff, lights fires, cooks outdoors, goes in the canoe, tons of cool stuff. Excellent stuff.
Yeah.
Inspirational. I love that sort of stuff popping up in my feed.
It's a great page.
It is, man. So thanks, Tibor, Adam, for supporting us, mate. Really appreciate it. Keep up the good work. All right. I have pushed it aside long enough, Craig. Let the battle begin.
Okay.
We did allude to this a long, long time ago, that it might come a time when we discuss hammock versus tent. And this is it. I've written a massive list of what I consider to be pros and cons of hammock versus tent. Do you have any comments before we commence? Stop reading my notes. I want to slay you.
Yeah, I think it might be a bit of a battle.
Yeah, it'd be even funnier if I assigned you, hammock, and then I battled against you.
Yeah.
I did consider that, but I have pros for both sides, so I'm not going to sit here and argue about hammocks.
Well, lots of time. The most recent adventures with you've been on the ground, so to speak.
This is true.
And in fact, I would be really hoping, Tom, you've got a list there of things about a tent, because I need some help. I might have to get one.
You know me too well. You know I would not leave that stone unturned.
All right.
But I'd put the stone back and leave no trace, of course.
Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, I think where we need to start is to make sure that we're comparing apples with apples. And this is going to be so unbelievably difficult, both with tents and hammocks. I don't want to waste half an hour talking about that, but I do want to take a minute to make a few small points. We're not talking about a tent that, weighs a 6-man tent that weighs 3 kilos, or that you drive around in your car. Okay, let's just keep this to kind of hiking and canoeing, like a small, compact, lightweight stuff, okay?
Sure.
For start, so 2 men or less, because I know that some people like to, like even Josh, a friend of ours, has a 2-man that he likes to take out even when he's by himself.
10.
Just so, yeah, 10.
Yeah.
Just so he can spread out.
Yeah.
And because they're getting so lightweight these days, that's actually not a bad option.
Yeah.
If you're saving weight elsewhere, why not take an extra few 100 grams to spread out? The other thing is hammocks. You can buy a $5 hammock on eBay, right?
Sure.
And it's just that parachute material, and technically it's a hammock. Doesn't have a fly, doesn't have mosquito netting, it has nothing. But if you're thinking about that as a hammock, then it's not going to fare too well in the scheme of things. So I kind of wanted to mention those things straight away, because what I'm gauging this on is realistic outdoor protection from the elements.
Okay.
So a tent that actually provides warmth, shelter from the rain, any other weather, a hammock that does the same thing.
Yeah, because that does rule out a lot of hammocks. There are
absolutely.
bunch of hammocks you can get that are just for relaxing in.
That's right.
And you could throw them in your pack just to relax in.
That's right. You could, absolutely. And people do, stuff them in there on a half-day hike and string them up next to a waterfall and eat lunch there.
Yeah, I've seen some
excellent
sites kind of call them day hammocks.
Yep.
And then you've got your nighttime hammocks, which are
and that's what we're talking
shelters,
about. So, just that little bit of clarification, I think, will help you guys listening as we kind of go through.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What I did, Craig, was I wrote down kind of individual points that I think are quite important, but I really want you to add any, or obviously add to these.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with, should we introduce a few? No, I think we'll just do that on the fly. Let's start with comfort. Okay? What do you have to say about comfort in a hammock?
Gee whiz. It can be one of the best night's sleep that I've had, and it can be quite the opposite as well.
Yep.
Initially, I didn't enjoy the comfort of sleeping in a hammock. I enjoyed the practicality of it with size and the novelty of it, and I enjoyed that we could put it in some awesome places, which we'll talk about soon.
Absolutely.
But the comfort is something that has evolved by getting slightly better hammocks.
Exactly.
Slightly more used to setting them up and getting the gear so you can sleep in it properly.
Yeah.
But I honestly think you don't wake up with that sort of I've been sleeping on the ground feeling. And it's been a while. I sleep in a swag now and then.
Yeah.
And that's got a fairly decent mattress in it.
It's like a
bed.
It is, yeah. Mine's got a 70mm mattress.
Yeah.
My swag.
Yeah.
And it's again, it's kind of not even comparable to a tent because it's so far beyond a tent.
Yeah. So unless you got a really good pad, I don't think it's very comfortable sleeping on the ground. And
controversial comment right there.
There you go.
People are bashing their type riders, mate. You started this. I'm going to add to that and say that, again, for people, I'm going to try and put a lot of different links to a lot of different hammock websites and tent websites in the show notes.
Good.
If you're not familiar with the show notes, jump on HikeordieTV.com, go to the podcast page, jump on the episode that you want to learn more about, and I'll have a list there of important things we've spoken about, or things of interest like all the books I just mentioned earlier. I'll chuck those on there for reference. I will also chuck different brands of hammocks on here. And now my hammock, because we both started with the same hammock, right?
Sure. Yep.
And it's probably a third of the price of the hammock you're running now.
Yeah.
Maybe less. It's just a straight, what they would call a symmetrical, which means that you sleep like a banana, rather than an asymmetrical, which you sleep diagonally, and because of that, you lay flat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the comfort.
That's right. So that's
factor.
So even in the hammock realm, I can sit here and argue based on my experiences that hammock's a shit to sleep in. Uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The blood runs out of my feet, and I can't sleep on my side that well. And when I try and string it up really tight, it cocoons around me, and it's claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that. But I've jumped into your hammock. I mean, when you weren't in there,
Is
just
that
to be
right?
specific, you were not there.
In fact, I don't even remember this.
Yeah,
When
what
was this? What was I doing?
I tied you up and put you somewhere else. No, it was. I'm sure it was at that cool kind of the time you took your drone out for the first time.
Yeah, cool. Yep.
Sure, it was there where you said,
"Get in,
jump in and check this thing out."
Sure.
And because I'd always just been curious of how good it is, and I remember getting into your hammock and laying diagonally and just thinking, "Wow, this is fantastic! It is so different.
Yeah,
it is not comparable." And we're talking about two hammocks. They're both hammocks.
Yeah. So I've got
the difference is ridiculous.
I've got a lounge hammock up on my deck up top, right?
Yep.
It's just a fabric.
Does it have the timber bar?
No.
Oh, no. Okay, so
I've got two eyelets.
Yep.
Mounted to the walls, so I can just lay in it. And if you put your head and feet from one end like you would, you can imagine how that is. You're sort of sagging in like a banana. And then if you lay the opposite way, like 90 degrees to that, and stretch the thing right out, you're just laying in a beautiful sort of fashion.
Yeah.
And so having that asymmetric ability when you're out there just gives you, a real sort of flat surface under your back.
Yeah.
And it does work.
It's the difference is phenomenal.
Yeah, I'd never go back.
No, and I'm can't wait until I get there, because it's definitely like the next hammock I get will have that flat lie kind of capability.
Yep.
There's other things been popping up. I noticed it quite some time ago, Craig. I'll just try and find. I've got a ridiculous amount of tabs open. Yeah, this one here. It's called the Hammock, AMOK.
Wow.
The Drama 3. Now, I discovered this about a year ago. No, maybe a bit more. I think it was about the time I was talking to you about upgrading.
Yep.
So this is, think of a hammock between two trees, and then think about lying completely perpendicular.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Across.
Yep.
But this isn't even asymmetrical. This is
that's right across.
This is 90 degrees across.
Okay, I'm with you.
Because the trees would be there and there. So
That sounds good.
yeah, and you got like a foot box there, and then so there's an image here of the guy sleeping on his stomach, and it's completely flat. Apparently, it relies pretty heavily on having a good inflatable pad, so it kind of keeps the integrity of the structure a little bit better. I mean, in the photo, the guy looks like he's asleep, so I'm pretty convinced. He looks asleep.
How much
it has
is that?
to be good. Well, they're out of stock until March 2019, so I think it's a US site. I remember them being around couple of $100 or something, but I've watched a bunch of videos on them, and you know what, it gets more interesting is you pull these tabs at the side, and it lets the feet go down, and you sit in almost like a perfect chair position. Really? Yeah. And then the fly just zips straight around the edge of that. So anyway, the reason I wanted to mention that is because there are other flat lay options. They're just, the thinking's just a bit outside the box, and it's a pretty big commitment. I'm not saying not to do it, but it's a pretty big commitment to just go and grab something which is essentially, I would consider that new technology. Or the concept is new. So sleeping in a hammock but perpendicular, that's a new concept that you don't often see. I mean, I'm super interested in it. It looks like it's the goods. I've seen independent reviews and it seems to be all good. There's another one that's just popped up, mate. They're called Sierra Madre, the company.
Yes, I was looking at the Sierra stuff.
Yeah, so they've already got a bunch of stuff, but what they've done with this is it Ninox as a flat lay hammock is essentially what they've done in a nutshell is instead of just getting a rectangle of fabric and just scrunching it off at both ends, which is essentially definitely what mine is, they've almost cut a wave shape into the ends, and then when all of that does scrunch up, it allows for a much flatter lay. And again, I'll put the video on the show notes page. But see how you can kind of, it actually goes pretty damn flat through there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, they say you can sleep on your back, your front, your side, or whatever. So that's worth checking out. The strap system doesn't require any knots, which I think is fantastic. So everything's just pull cords.
Little clips, is it? Or
just kind of like, what do you call those? The same kind of things you tighten up your pack with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is with some hammocks you have to tighten them pretty tight and get the tension just perfect, or else you'll have, this could be the difference between an okay sleep and a really, really bad sleep. But with this, having it loose is actually part of the secret from my observations of the videos and stuff. So you don't need that really taut across the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually specifically meant to be loose so that when you're laying in that basin there in the bottom, you're essentially lying flat.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a fairly priced, and it comes with the fly and everything. I don't have a picture to show you. But yeah, I'll leave that on the show notes. Interesting product. Again, it just comes back to all of these conversations I'm having and coming back to that comfort factor of a hammock, which is people tend to struggle with the weirdness of sleeping like a banana in a cheap hammock. And I'm there with you. I don't like it either.
Yeah, well, you've shown me a couple there I haven't fully considered. But my number one is obviously the Hennessy hammocks.
Oh, the Hennessy, the build quality and the lightweight and they're fantastic.
The simplicity is what strikes me because I have, as we said, this topic, I started doing a bit more research. I've got a few to show you that are really, really interesting, but they're quite complicated as well.
Yeah, that's a fair call. And it's like another one I was going to talk to you about was Crua, CRUA, Crua Outdoors. It's that hybrid hammock tent. It's got
the Mark II. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a mat in it, and the sleeping bag's kind of attached to the mat, and then it's almost like a swag that you can string between two trees, but you can also just leave it on the ground.
Because it's got two poles in it.
Exactly.
So it's actually got
it's actually got a whole hoop over the top.
Like a hoop, two hoops or something.
A hoop on each end. So that's what's forcing that square shape. Yeah. And apparently with that you can sleep pretty flat as well.
Which brand are you calling that?
That's Crua Outdoors.
And they've got a Mark II.
Yeah.
I'm confused because the Clarks are amazing. Have you seen the Clark hammocks?
No, I don't think I've seen those. Oh, I have seen them, but I didn't know they were Clark. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, they are very popular. They're rated really well by a few reviews I've seen, and they're amazing. And they actually incorporate a lot of sort of insulation into them, and which is a really important factor. But they weigh a lot more. They're a lot more expensive, and they're quite a complicated system.
Yeah, and I'd kind of say the same thing. I mean, look at this tire system here. I mean, obviously you don't have to do that. It's all goes through these poles, but they get a bit messy. Yeah.
You can get all tangled up in that stuff, I reckon.
Yeah, so you're right. The simplicity of the Hennessy is quite. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Those guys are selling a lot of hammocks, and there's a lot of happy people. I mean, just in our circle of hiking friends, how many have got the Hennessy?
Heaps, yeah.
Heaps.
Yeah, it's very popular. But all these guys have great ideas. It's really interesting little topic. And even the Sierra, I noticed they've got these handles right up inside, so above your head.
Yeah.
And you can grab it and just reposition yourself.
Just give yourself
Why isn't that in nearly every hammock?
Yeah,
you can just reach
because
up
in mine, I often have to put my hands behind my head and grab the zipper on each side and slide myself up if through the night I keep going down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, technology and ideas that are, they're there at the forefront of it, and they're all going to sort of develop as time goes by, I think.
Yeah, that's right. It'd be interesting to see how some of these new ones go.
These ones here, you're supposed to be able to store all your gear. So you arrive and you sort of empty your pack and store it all inside your hammock, which adds insulation, which is...
Oh, I see.
And it actually puts a bit of weight below your hammock. So all of this is air.
Yeah.
And so therefore the wind and stuff isn't going to get to your back.
Yeah, because that's for those of you who don't know, and that was something I was going to bring up in the next point of warmth, is you lose heat through convection.
Yep.
Because you're not in contact with the ground and blocking that loss of heat. So you, in a tent, there's you, the mat, and then the ground, and you're keeping that heat together. But the problem with hammocks, as soon as a slight breeze gets up and starts coming underneath, is it's taken away all that output, and it's just lost.
Yeah, I've had many of freezing nights in a hammock.
Yeah, I've had a couple of cold ones.
Yep. And I love a nice cold night, and you just get all warmed up in your blanket in your bed. I love that,
Yeah, me too. But I don't like it when I'm cold inside.
You can't warm up in these
inside a
things.
-10 sleeping bag.
That's right.
Celsius, by the way.
I've got to say that I've been, wearing 3 jumpers to bed with sleeping bag, and you can still get really cold even in just a mild temperature. So that is a big problem.
It is, absolutely is.
Because once you start adding under blankets and extra clothing to your pack, these things become much more heavier than a tent. So
that's right. If you have to carry your sleeping bag and your hammock, and then you have to carry an under blanket for the hammock, man, it's starting to defeat the purpose of lightweight hiking.
Yeah, sometimes you can exclude your mat as a hammock, as a hammock sleeper, and we can...
I mean, I've actually never done that because I know that without that insulation, I'll just freeze. I know you've done it in the past.
That's what I do a lot, and that's where we do sort of debate, is I can't sleep on those mats in a hammock.
Yeah. The 10 on the ground thing for me is, if we're talking about the perfect campground with just a nice flat ground, then I do, if I've got a good mat, which I do, I have a good mat, and a good sleeping bag, then I do have a really good sleep. I love that flexibility of kind of spreading out. The problem with, what is more of a problem with ground sleeping is, in my opinion, is the pillow situation. Because you're not sinking into a bed, so the pillow needs to be higher than it normally would in a bed. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Because in a bed, you sink into the bed and then you lay your head on the pillow. But when you're on hard ground with quite a firm air mattress or foam mattress, you're physically higher than you would be. So the pillow needs to be higher. I know a lot of people just stuff jumpers in stuff sacks, and I've done that. I've done it recently, but I'm just kind of getting sick of that. But I do like sleeping on the ground. Mm-hmm. Again, the Zembivy, I'm so keen to get that out because it comes with a pillow that slots into the compartment where it's not going to flip out and slide out, and halfway through the night my head's on the ground and I'm looking around in the dark for a pillow.
Yeah.
Look, we started to dig into warmth there, so we should just keep on that topic. Again, I think that the warmth is much better in the tent. I mean, it seems like you agree with that anyway.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You can just get warm and stay warm if you're lucky, you know.
Yeah,
and that's the way to be.
There's a whole crew in the States, especially, that like they get those war bonnets. You heard of them?
On top of the hammock?
No, the war bonnet's another brand of hammock, and they have those massive underquilts. They're kind of built for
snowy to
serious cold, where they've got a full, almost looks like a sleeping bag attached to the bottom of the hammock, and that's you could take that out in really cold conditions.
Yeah, sure.
But again, you're starting to go into that weight class, which I wouldn't consider as kind of hiking weight, or it's at least on the extremities of it.
Yeah, yeah.
For us, we carry a lot of camera gear, and so I want to be saving weight everywhere else because I know I've got to take the camera gear. If I didn't have to carry 5 kilos of camera gear, maybe I would chuck an extra kilo in for sleeping requirements.
Yes. So yeah, as far as warmth and weight go, depends what sort of terrain, what sort of weather you're going to be encountering.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's 100% something to take into account as well. Airflow. We'll talk about airflow. What I mean by that is I've had much more... Well, there's pros and cons to airflow. You don't want airflow, like we just said, you don't want airflow under a hammock on a cold night, but you do want airflow when it's in hot conditions or humid conditions. And we've been in that situation quite a few times. And I definitely think that the opportunity to open the vestibules on a tent, both sides, and or even take if it's a fine night, take the fly off completely and lay flat, raised off the ground, and the breeze coming through is a much, much better scenario than being cocooned in a hammock. Even if you take the fly off,
yeah, right,
you still, I mean, you can't, it's not flat, so the breeze is not going to come through like it would through a tent.
Yeah.
So that's something that I definitely enjoy. If it's hotter, I definitely enjoy being on the ground because I can just sleep on top of the mat or the sleeping bag and not have it all up around me and over the top of me and the sides of the hammock in so close that it stopped my breeze flow.
Yeah, totally. Yep. So you are right to say whether it's too cold or whether it's too hot, you've got, tents seem to win.
Tents win.
Oh,
man, can you imagine all the people that are just arguing with us right now as they commute or drive or whatever?
All right, but I'm gonna move the conversation to terrain now. Okay.
Yeah, good. I had it somewhere, but go for it now.
Because no matter what the extra weight or whatever, you can't be sure about handling difficult terrain in a tent. I just have.
So I counter your terrain comment with, not everywhere has convenient trees.
Yeah. Okay. Can we just rewind that bit? Because I it's not that I assume everywhere has trees. And actually, you're right, because I did look around yesterday at this camp. And, I was just thinking there's only a couple of trees here and there's nowhere to fix the other end. So it would have been a problem.
Yeah, but like both can be a problem. The thing is, it also comes down to what type of hiking you do. Now, when I hiked in Tasmania, I slept in the cabins because I had that flexibility, and I was just getting over a flu virus, so I didn't want to get colder, and I didn't feel like setting up my tent every night.
Yeah.
But those are the places where They have beautiful grass fields or tent platforms to set up your tent.
Yeah.
They have zero opportunities for hammocks. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
If you took a hammock on that trip, well, I mean, admittedly, there's cabins there if you need them. But if you got stuck halfway between, like, there's some places where you'll walk for 4 hours and there's no trees. There's nothing above, like, chest-high shrubs.
Yeah, right.
They just don't exist. Like, you're up in that alpine region.
Mm.
So that's when I bought my tent for that trip. It only weighs 600 grams. I've got a tarp tent, Notch, it's called. And it's a beautiful little thing.
Mm.
What I also like about it, and this is what I consider to be one of my mandatory rules for any hiking equipment, is it's got to do 2 jobs. My tent uses my hiking poles as the poles.
That's
so
nice.
I take hiking poles anyway. Why the hell should I carry tent poles and add to my weight? So I find that a really another advantage, that a lot more tents these days are coming up with that option to use your hiking poles as 2 struts.
I get you.
It's becoming really popular. So you're cutting down on that weight.
No, look, I guess you've got a really strong point about there being lots of places you can't swing a hammock, and I guess I don't consider that because most of the time we're in a rainforest or a jungle.
Exactly right. That's what I mean about the places that we go. If we want to get deep into like a rainforest or jungle or whatever, some of the terrain, some of the ground is either muddy, covered in leeches, it's rocks.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean 1 or 2 that you can move. I mean, it's rocky. It doesn't have dirt.
Yeah.
Or the trees are so close together that there's not a span where you can actually get a flat spot 6 foot long, which is not much to ask, but that's why the hammocks are perfect.
Yeah, that's where I've seen
That's why we got the hammocks.
That's why we got them.
Yep.
And that's where I've seen so many spots where there's not that flat spot. And I'm assuming, and I've been lucky to have hammocks most of the time, that if there was even just a slight gradient on the ground, it really spoils your night, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely.
It's got to be pretty
And it doesn't
flat.
matter which direction either. If it's up, down, or a slight gradient sideways, you'll find yourself rolling and sliding all night. Like it can mess with you. You think you're good for the first 10 minutes. Oh, this is great. But as you start to relax and really start to fall asleep, you realize that it's not good. And if you're out on a multi-day expedition of sorts, you're just going to gradually chip away at your happiness.
Yep.
You'll be more cranky and less sleep, less energy. You're not going to bounce out of bed. You got to do your research, and that's why I said earlier, I'm still going to get a hammock. I'm going to upgrade mine to something that's a flat sleeper, because there's so many opportunities where I 100% know if you say, hey, Tom, you want to go and stay there for a few nights, I go, yeah, that's a hammock job. There's no way I'm taking a tent to that place.
That's right. If it's backcountry and you don't know where there's a campsite, there's no designated area for camp, you just got to find a spot.
Yeah.
Then I think you're better chance of finding suitable terrain with a hammock.
As long as you're in a wooded area.
As long as you got trees.
Yeah.
But then there's always the opportunity to put the hammock on the ground.
Yep.
Whereas, if you've got no ground, you can't put a tent.
Yeah, that's right. The hammock on the ground falls into that category of it's not going to be the best sleep of your life either, because it's quite a bit of mucking around, and you'd still need, as an emergency, absolutely, you could just chuck it down, get in, zip the fly over you so you don't get bugs and snakes sleeping with you. The mosquito net, and then chuck the fly over the top, stops condensation and rain. That's an excellent emergency situation. But otherwise, you're going to need hiking poles or something to get that to the structure up above your body, or it's going to lay on top of you all night, and I guarantee they would give you the shits.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, having that just all in your face, especially if it was hot weather or something. Yeah, but you're right. As an emergency, if there's no suitable ground, you can't string up your tent in a tree. Unless it, I don't know, you just did it from one end and it was just a big bag crawled in it. Let's talk about rain protection, because I think that's a varying topic as well. Tell me what you think about the rain protection, level of rain protection on a hammock.
Yeah, well, there's always a chance a bit of rain's going to get in a hammock.
Yeah.
There is always that chance. Whereas in a tent, I've been pretty happy most of the time.
Yeah. We have been in a situation where we got caught out in a big storm, both in our hammocks on the edge of a cliff with wind coming sideways and rain and everything. And I remember being pleasantly surprised how much rain didn't come in. Mm-hmm. I think there's a bit of luck involved in that, because of the wind seemed to come a bit from the side, so it was hitting. We got out and put our rain fly down. How would I explain that, Craig? So less horizontal and as vertical as we could possibly get it, coming down right beside our bodies.
Yeah, down tight.
And tied down really tight. So the only way rain could get in was if it would blow in one end or the other. Yep. And also on that, which is a tip for anybody who sleeps in hammocks, I have a big it must be about a 60 litre, or maybe 80 litre, a dry bag that I put all my sleeping bag and warm clothes inside my bag.
Yep.
And what I actually did that night was got in my sleeping bag and then put my feet in the dry bag and pulled it up. It came up just above my knees. So all the rain that came in that end of the tent was just going on the dry bag, and my sleeping bag was staying dry. Because I remember I was panicking a bit because that was my down sleeping bag and I didn't want to get that soaked.
Yeah. I'd be really surprised if we'd ever get soaked in a hammock.
I don't think you get soaked. I think you get a wet head or wet feet, just like a mist kind of spray.
The mist was coming in, and it was a big summer storm. You know, we weren't too worried about the cold. It was just worried.
No, I was not worried about the cold. I was worried about getting saturated, like everything getting torn off the trees, and then us sitting there in the pouring rain and getting hypothermia.
Yeah, but no, I remember thinking, gee whiz, we didn't get too much water in.
We definitely came off really good in that. Look, you're never going to beat the rain protection of a tent. That's going to win hands down. That's why they take tents to really kind of violent areas of the planet where there's heavy winds and snow and all that sort of stuff, is because you can get that profile of those tents right down. You know, those kind of dome ones, the very specific ones.
Yeah.
So the profile's real low. The wind's going over it instead of battering the side of it.
Yeah.
The edges of the tent are coming in contact with the ground and stopping that, again, that convection. So you're creating a igloo effect there where you're sealing off the air and your warmth is staying within the tent.
Sure.
And the rain's staying out. Then you've got things like the bucket floors where they're 100% waterproof and they come up the side a couple of inches. So even if there's rain blowing in or pooling underneath, you're still safe. And that's something that's come a long way in tents, is what they're putting on the base.
Yeah.
I remember the old days where you
just had a bit of tarp along the bottom.
Yeah, and any tent you slept in, you wake up in the morning and all the water had come through from the ground.
Yeah.
But these days, the technology in fabrics is kind of eliminating that.
I should just talk about rain. That we have a diamond fly, that we use most of the time. But there are hex flies which are massive.
Yeah.
They weigh a bit more,
Yep.
but they have...
That's 6 point? Yeah, 6 point flies.
6 point,
So
which
four,
means...
four to the ground and two
Yeah.
to the trees.
Yeah, so instead of one on each side, you got two, makes
Yeah.
4, and it gives you much better protection.
Exactly, yeah.
It's just a bit
That's
bigger.
a really good point you make, mate, because, again, we're just talking about our experience there with that storm, and if we had have had hex flies,
Yeah,
it wouldn't have cut in so drastically because it wouldn't have been the diamond shape.
Mm.
It would have gone the opposite way down
Yeah.
to the ground, and I'd say we would have had minimal.
yeah, and they're interchangeable. So if I did, I'd have two. I'd have two
Yeah.
different flies for my Hennessy.
Have a diamond and a hex.
I don't
and-
have a hex, but Damo does or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
his option, if it's going to look like weather that might get some rain, you'd bring the hex fly.
Yeah, yep.
I
Yeah,
guess.
that's a good idea. I also, not that I've ever tried it because I don't have a hex either, but I also imagine that you could get that hex right down, especially those 2 pegs down the end, down each end. You
Yeah,
should
sure.
be able to get them right down, almost crossing, and nip those 2 ends up so that they're almost closed.
And they're slightly oversized, I believe. So
Yeah, they're massive. They're
They,
longer than,
yeah.
physically, way longer than your body.
yeah, I don't think wood would get in them.
No, they're pretty good. That's a really good point you make there. I think anybody looking at any brand of hammock should be seeing if they can handle the cost and the weight of a hex fly. We're only talking a few 100 grams, by the way. But if you can absorb that cost and weight, you should definitely go down that route. The other convenience of a fly, a rain fly for a hammock, is it becomes a place where you could actually sit under it and eat.
Mhm.
You could sit under it and rest. You could put your backpack under it if
Yeah.
it's pouring with rain. Like, it actually becomes a useful tool. You don't have to carry another tarp. I think it's pretty valuable. The other thing about let's go straight into setup, mate, because that lends itself to that. One of the most interesting things about a hammock is a lot of them come with these things called snake skins, which is how could I explain it? It's like a sock that comes down from each end, and it just all scrunches up into that, and it just makes a big tube, and then it's really easy to roll that up and throw it in your pack. But it's equally easy when you span that between the trees, and then you just pull those 2 socks back, and all of a sudden your hammock's already set up.
Yep.
The beauty of that is you can leave those on and tighten it up, and it's not in the way.
Yeah, so you can sit under the fly.
So you can sit under there. But also, what's fantastic about a hammock is if you get to a location and it's pouring with rain, you can put your fly up first.
Yep.
And then get under the fly, and then deal with the rest of it, and then put your dry hammock up underneath, and then get changed into your dry clothes. So it's pretty useful. Like, not many tents can do that. I know mine is pretty cool. Like I said, the notch is you can actually just put it all up in one go, or you can you can detach the inside and just put the fly up, get under there, get out of the rain, and then take your time putting up the inside.
Oh, is that right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise it would be pretty hard to put a tent up in the rain, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
everything's going to get wet.
Yeah, look, most of the time, because it's going to pool really quickly,
Mm.
and that creates a problem. But yeah, with this, you can just unclip it really quickly, keep that dry in your pack, put the fly up, get under there, then take your time and get everything dry, get your sleeping stuff out, and you're not getting it out in the rain and then taking it into your tent. You're actually under there doing it. Which brings me to another point. If you're going to buy a tent that doesn't have vestibules, which is the area on either the front, the back, or either side where it's under the fly, so it's under the rain fly, but the mosquito net doesn't take up all of that room, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's where you can still drag your pack inside the tent, but it's outside of the area you sleep in. A lot of traditional like dome tents will have a vestibule at the front, and what's cool about that is like mine's got out the side. Same thing. When I get out of my tent, I spin my feet out, and my boots are outside of the clean zone. They're on the ground, but they're still out of the rain, out of the dew.
Yeah, gotcha.
And I put them on, and then I go outside of the rain fly.
Yeah,
so
right.
That's the major advantage of that is, and the opposite on the way in. It could be pouring with rain. You get into the vestibule, zip it down, turn around and put your butt into the tent, take your boots off and leave them outside, and then pull your feet in. I mean, obviously the hammock has exactly the same benefits because you can sit in the hammock, take your boots off, and then swing yourself in.
Mate, I think it's so much more versatile to have a hammock with being able to raise that fly right up so you can stand under it. You can, as we just said, you can turn it into a chair. Hello.
Yeah. The chair functionality of a hammock, when you sit sideways and let your legs dangle over, it's so comfortable at the end of a day of hiking.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's one of my favourite things to do is sit in there and eat my dinner. Do you remember we were at one particular place, Bethongabel, and we were getting a lot of leeches on us, and that's happened a bunch of times, but I just remember how good it was to ditch your boots. One of the things I do is I hang my boot, tie the laces together and hang that up over the, what would you call that? The line that runs underneath the
main
rain
ridge.
fly. The ridge line. Just so that they're out of the rain, but they're not getting scorpions in them or something.
Yep.
And I can do that from sitting in there. I don't even have to get out. I just take them off and lean over and throw them over.
Sure.
But I just remember on that trip in particular how good it was to know that the leeches were on the ground and I was raised above that, but I didn't have to be enclosed in my tent. So if I was in a tent, I would have had to get all the leeches off, take my boots off, get in the tent, zip it up, and then just say, oh, okay, mate, I'm just going to sit in here like I'm in prison.
Yeah.
Just, hi.
Yeah, being up off the ground has its advantages.
Yeah, it most certainly does.
On a few occasions.
It's really cool when we are able to set up what was it about episode 3 we did, episode 3 of the podcast we actually did out in a rainforest, and we had our hammocks set up almost opposite each other. Yeah. And we were just facing each other. So you could just have a chat across from hammock to hammock, but you've got your feet up off the ground. Perfect example of why it's good to have your feet up off the ground at night. I was hiking with Damo, and we were both sitting in our hammocks exactly the same, facing each other probably a few meters away.
Yeah.
Having a chat, eating dinner, and we had our head torches off because we were just talking and the moonlight was coming down. And it was all romantic and everything, you know, how it gets the glowworms or anything. Anyway, I was getting ready to sort of go to bed for the night. Sort of, I'll jump down, stow all my gear away, you know, go to the toilet and then jump in the hammock. And what I always do is I just flick my head torch on and shine it down directly under my hammock to see if there's a spider or scorpion or whatever there. And as I've turned on my head torch, directly in front of me, a meter away, was about a 5 or 6 foot diamond python.
Is that right?
Coming directly for me, head up in the air, about front of its body was about a foot off the ground.
Yeah.
Tongue was out, it's tasting the air, thinking, what the hell is this thing? And it came right up to me. And I was going to put my feet there. I was going to put my feet right there about...
Do you reckon it could have lifted up into the hammock? Yeah. Or lifted up onto you easily?
Well, the interesting thing about it's hard to explain, there was this kind of boulder next to me. It was the only spot I could get. And so the boulder would have enabled it to come up over that and then just up enough to, like, normally I'm 3 foot off the ground.
Yeah.
So this boulder made it so that I was almost only like 1.5 foot on one side and then 3 foot on the other side. So yeah, the side he was coming at, if he wanted to come up, and he could have easily, but he was coming up, like checking me out, and I just remember turning on and I just started talking to him, and Damo shit himself. He's like, "Oh my God, man." I just didn't know what to do. I'm like, "Yeah, all right, buddy, don't come this way."
Yeah, no. I've seen him, crawl around through the trees and stretch across things. I reckon they could lift themselves up into a hammock if they think it looks warm in there.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing they might do, but luckily they're not too dangerous.
Well, they could easily come down the lines.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But lucky that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's an example of being in that rainforest kind of jungle environment and not having to have your feet on the ground, not having to sit on the ground in all of the leeches and stuff. So that's where hammocks kind of win.
Romantic evening, you and Damo, hey?
Yeah,
and a snake comes out.
Yeah, the snake came out.
Where was I? Sounds good.
All right, let's talk about packing down. I think that I'd say tent and hammock, I reckon they're much of a muchness on the pack down.
Yeah.
I don't reckon there's too much difference. Well, at least for my tent, it's pretty quick. You pull those hiking poles out. It's only got 4 pegs.
Mm-hmm.
4 pegs and 2 hiking poles. You drop the poles, pull the pegs out, and then you just start folding it up, and it goes into a neat little package.
Okay.
Maybe the actual hammock, dismantling the hammock, so pulling the snake skins down, dropping that, putting that in a stuff sack is real quick.
Pretty quick.
But then you got to deal with untying the fly, putting the fly down, taking all the straps off the trees, putting all this. So I reckon it. There's that technical aspect. You'd have to agree that people tend to get how a tent should look and how it should go up. Remember how long it took us to get the hang of hammocks? Like, it's an actual art form. You should be putting it up 10 times in your backyard or the park before you take it out.
Oh, yeah.
It's stressful, man.
I'm sure we took 3 times as long.
Mate.
At the start.
It was like an hour or something.
Probably was.
Remember that time? But Thongabel, that you were kind of freaking out because you're worried that we were going to get another storm and that
those new
takes
straps
so long, and the straps, it was all frustrating. And thankfully that weather didn't come through that night, but I remember saying to you, look, let's just get yours up first, because I had put mine up enough to know that I could do it quite quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes a lot of practice, and I don't believe that my tent took that much practice. I put it up once in the backyard and felt confident enough to take it on a 7-day trip.
Yeah, that's what worries me about some of these quite expensive too, hammocks that have 3 linings in them that are all clipped together. It's quite complicated. You get them back the front or whatnot because they all come apart. So I do see the complexity of the hammocks as a bit of a problem. But the Hennessy, which I'd put up the front, is very simple. It's all in one snake skin. There's no fly.
That's right.
It's quite a really ingenious design and simple as hell. So
yeah, they've gone above and beyond to really research and
it goes up real quick.
Simplify that. Oh yeah. You're
a couple of times. Like, it goes up real quick, but most of the time you've got to sometimes go back and go, I just wanted to lift that up a little bit on that end, and that takes, just a minute just to put it up the tree a bit higher or something if you didn't get it right the first time.
Yeah.
But if you did nail it the first time, it's probably 2-3 minutes just to bang, bang, clip.
Right, that comes from experience as well, though. When you're first putting them up, you don't even know how high to put them. How high to put this thing?
That's
Do I
right.
put it head height or chest height? I don't know. And if I put it at one height, is it that bad that I have to take it all down and start again?
And then you sit in it and it goes down. And
Yeah, you sag down, or it's so high.
Touch the ground.
I put mine up so high one night that I had to actually like bounce up to get my butt into it. I had it up really high and tried to get it really taut, and then realized later, oh man, that was stupid. I was
Have you ever
5 foot off the ground.
Have you ever fallen out of a hammock?
No, I've never fallen out. I almost rolled sideways and then I fell against the fly. You know how they can tip up, so you're still in the hammock, but my face and body was facing the ground, but just there was the fly mesh. So
man.
I was on completely like on the side and had to roll back and set everything back. Yeah, but I've never gone to get in it and slipped or flipped off the back or anything like that, thankfully.
Yeah, no, I've been pretty lucky. But
they're more stable. They're way more stable than you would anticipate.
Yeah,
Heaps
but
more. Sitting in it even.
it was a little bit scary at first, you know. It was a little bit of a you're going to be swinging in this thing at night.
Yeah.
Is it going to rock around? Am I going to fall out of this thing? What?
Yeah.
So you got to get over that initially.
You do, because I think there's that tendency. It almost feels like you're in a boat where it moves slightly and you think you have to quickly correct yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of panic, but then you realize after a while that thing can rock back and forwards and you don't have to worry about it. Forget about it. Like, enjoy that feeling. Yeah. That's one of my favorite sensations of a hammock is when it's rocking with the breeze, or you roll over and it rocks for about 4 or 5 times and you just close your eyes and you go, this is the best, man. Like, it's fantastic. Yeah. Sleeping in the clouds.
No, I grew a real personal just sort of attachment to my hammock, and I love just finding spots to set it up and sleep in the night. So nice.
Yeah.
It's such a peaceful experience once you got the hang of it.
No, they're a beautiful thing. In good weather, you raise that, put your ridgeline if you fly much higher, and then make the flight really horizontal so you can see out. There's nothing better than that, being able to overlook a creek or look across and see a mountain range from your bed. That's spots pretty epic.
You couldn't ever set a tent up there.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
No, it's really good. The pack weight is something that, I mean, it's a tricky conversation because, as we alluded to at the start, it varies so much, ridiculously. You can say hammocks are lighter than tents. And I'll call bullshit straight away because I go, what about the war bonnet if you're camping in the snow? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just such a variable. There's no way of saying that one's lighter than the other. There's, like I said, my tent's 600 grams.
Sure.
But I have to carry hiking poles, which I do anyway.
That's pretty light.
No, it's really light. There's other ones that aren't much heavier than that or the same weight as that these days, and they've got those poles with little bungee cords, so they pop up anyway. No, it's not. It's really good. But I think, again, I'm talking about what I would consider a pretty high budget item as well.
Yeah.
Like, it was not a cheap tent. It's not cheap in any way. Like, it's not cheap in price. It's not cheap in build quality. Like, it's an excellent tent. If you want to drop down to a mid-tier, your weight's going up by 50%, man. Yeah. You're over the kilo. You're up to like 1.2.
Yeah.
1.5 kilos maybe.
Yeah.
And that's a quick jump, and it all comes with cash.
Yeah.
Money gets lighter stuff, and it's painful.
Yep.
It's the same with hammocks. You want a lighter hammock, lighter strap system, good, fork out 2/3 more money.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's sort of hit them up then. What's a lightweight option for a tent? You seem to have one, and you can give us the specs.
I'm definitely no expert in.
What's the brand that you're using again?
It's Tarp Tent.
Tarp Tent.
And the model is called the Notch. It's a one-man tent with 2 vestibules on the left and right-hand side,
Cool.
And you use your own hiking poles.
Right.
I mean, in an emergency, you could get a couple of sticks or
Is
whatever.
it like a mummy shape section in the middle, or
It's more like a coffin shape, so a diamond. So it flares out in the middle, considerably flares out, which is where you put your gear either side.
Okay.
Very long. I mean, I'm tall, so I make sure I get long tents.
Mm-hmm.
And quite wide because that diamond shape allows you to have width, so you're not crammed in there.
And so summer versus winter, you're not going to alter that?
No, not here. Not in Australia. No, I don't need to. The adjustment I can make is pulling the tabs down so it touches the ground better and doesn't let breeze come over it. So
but
not in Australia, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't weigh or cost any more to do that?
No, zero. The other thing that I was quite specific about when I purchased my tent was the ability to sit upright in it. Fully upright.
Yeah.
Because I just knew on the trips that we do of an evening, sometimes you're in there cleaning camera lenses or changing batteries or changing SD cards and looking at equipment. And I didn't want to be in some ridiculous bivvy where I'm laying down, you know?
Yeah, I got a little bivvy that
I didn't even bother mentioning bivvies because they shouldn't even be included in tents. They're excellent for what they are, but you can't say a bivvy's a tent. It's a very constricted way of sleeping. It usually means that you don't even have the opportunity to open a fly because then you're exposed to the elements. Which is why I didn't even bother mentioning them earlier.
All right, so what's the weight of yours?
My tent, I think it's 600 grams.
Versus 784.
Is that with straps though? And a fly?
Just ropes. Yes. Yeah, that's everything you need. 784 for the Hyperlight Hennessy.
Is that what you've got, the Hyperlight?
Yep. That was the first one I had.
Then
I now use the Backpacker, which is 120 grams more.
Right.
Only because they didn't have the Hyperlight in Australia when I wanted to upgrade. I wanted to
how would you rate the Hyperlight though for 4 seasons in Australia at least? Is it designed for warmer climates or?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'd need to get the.
So that's what I mean. I don't think that comparing that to my tent is really valid. I think you need to go the next one up.
But the next one up isn't warmer.
Oh, really?
No.
Has it got a double?
It's just a different material. It's cheaper.
Right.
So it's a bit heavier. It's got a slightly heavier fabric. So you could suggest it's a bit warmer, but it doesn't have any extra barriers against.
Right. I'm sure that heavier fabric would help in some way.
Okay.
Does it have the bottom which allows you to slot your mat in between?
Neither of these two do.
Ah, right.
Yeah. No, you've got to go to a different one for that.
Which is obviously going to add more weight.
Yep. So that's a Hyperlight option that, then you need the super shelter, they call it, that clips on underneath or whatnot. So.
And what does that do?
So that's like an underquilt, kind of like you were showing me.
Right, those war bottoms.
Like a sleeping bag underneath.
Yeah, right. You've got one of those now, haven't you?
Yeah, I do.
How much does that weigh? Oh, you don't have to tell me, so I'm putting you on the spot there.
Yeah.
But is it does it really kind of add to
insulation? It's bulky and they weigh a little bit. So here's the Zip 4 Seasons. Specifications say 474 grams. So that's considerable weight to have to throw that in your pack now.
Yeah, it is.
And another $140 from US.
$140 Australian.
US.
Oh, $140 US. Right, okay.
To add to the cost, and you need that in winter. You really probably do, you know?
Yeah, man, it'd be hard to get me to go out in winter again with a hammock.
Yeah.
After having very uncomfortable situations multiple times. I just don't think I could risk it again.
Mm.
It just doesn't add up to that experience that I want.
Okay. So
But I'd take them all day in summer.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, it's mainly weight and cost. So
yeah, and they're both two things that are so vast that we can't really give a definitive answer on that. Are tents more expensive? No,
not by the sound of it.
But are tents lighter? Not necessarily. It's just there's so many variables. So
yeah,
if we skip now to what I guess. I mean, I guess we have discussed the best uses, and I think we both agree on all of these points, which are things like the hammock's going to win every time in thick vegetation, rocky ground, muddy ground, uneven ground, rain. When I say rain, I mean rain on the ground, so wet ground. When a seat's really useful if you want to get away from leeches and stuff. When you want to chuck a rain fly up, but maybe not even put your hammock up. Maybe you just want to eat lunch under it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where you're really going to get that excellent hammock experience.
Yep.
That you'll tell your friends how awesome it is to own a hammock.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, the tent, if you're used to going on trails to designated camp areas or places where you know well in advance that there's meadows or grassy fields to pitch your tent on, and you can overlook, look out the side of your tent and see mountains or snow-capped mountains or whatever. If that's, which is quite a reality in a lot of places.
Yeah.
If that's where the type of places you're hiking, then you're probably not going to have the opportunity for trees anyway, and that might not be. You might want to camp right next to a stream on the gravel, and I think that's where the beauty of the tent comes in. I also think that for the most part, if you really want that sleep under the stars experience, you're going to have a better one with a tent that you can remove the fly altogether and not not have to be, because essentially anywhere you are a hammock, there's foliage above you, right?
Trees above you.
You're only going to get limited view of the stars. It's still beautiful, don't get me wrong. The amount of times I've laid there and looked up through the trees at the stars and everything from a hammock is awesome. But to get that full, 360 degree kind of view in perfect weather, you leave that rain fly off and you're just basically keeping the bugs off.
Yep.
That's pretty epic. So, Greg, excellent battle. Thank you very much. Do you have a definitive winner? If I said to you, as of today, you must only carry one or the other for the rest of your adventure life, what would you choose?
One or the other. Well, look, I'm probably just going to side on I've been doing pretty well with my Hyperlight Hennessy hammock, and I'll probably just stick with that for the moment. I haven't really needed a tent.
Stick to hammock. I'm going tent, mate. I'm going tent. I'm looking into the future. I'm looking into the future, and I'm saying, if I go to New Zealand and I'm up the top of some mountain that doesn't have trees, you'll just be a little ice cube in your cocoon. I'll just come and kick you in the morning because I'll be all toasty. No, look, there is no winners. It's horses for courses. Know that when you buy a hammock, you're not buying a replacement for a tent. You're buying a different kind of freedom for a different kind of terrain, and vice versa. Get what you need, but just understand how vastly different they are. Yeah. Hey guys, I hope we didn't bore you with the technicalities of that. I know that people who are interested in that conversation would probably have got a lot out of that. It's certainly something that we've had many conversations about. I mean, so many people ask us about it as well and comment on our photos on Instagram, and that we thought it was something worth tackling. I actually enjoyed it, to be honest.
Yeah, mate. It's always been a chat we've had, and I think it's not one or the other. It's
definitely not.
It's just.
I like to stir you up, but it's not.
What do you need for this adventure?
Yeah, sure is, mate. Guys, thanks for listening. Really appreciate it. It's been good. It's been good fun. So thanks, Craig.
Thanks. No worries. See you later.
Yeah, catch you guys next time. Cheers. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, we'd really appreciate your ratings and comments if you can spare the time. If you'd like to know more about HikeordieTV and keep track of our adventures around Australia, make sure you drop by Hikeordie.com. That's where you'll find all the information you'll need to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or Pinterest. As always, we appreciate your support. Thanks for listening.